Okay, let's continue with our focus on how we put information into paragraphs and texts. Now, one important thing to know when you look at sentences is that most sentences start at the beginning with an element that is already considered to be known, something that we know, and that the new information, the newer things are mentioned at the end of a sentence, so that this information is easier to process in your brain. You first sketch some kind of context, a framework, that's the beginning of the sentence, and the new information then gets added to that context. Once, of course, you've mentioned this new information, you can use this information as so-called known information. Once that you mention it, it is clear to your audience, and you can then use it at the beginning of your next sentence. Let's look at an example to make that more clear. For instance, we have a sentence: yesterday the Prime Minister talked to the unions. I give a context of a setting. You've got yesterday, there is a Prime Minister in the country, and that person talked to the unions, the trade unions. Then your next sentence, you can give more information about the unions. You take that idea that was at the end of the previous sentence and start with that, because it's now known information. Oh yes, the unions are involved. By the way, the unions are planning industrial action, and that's new information here. And in the next sentence then you can take up that idea of industrial action and give an example. Well, what kind of industrial action? We're actually talking about a general strike here. A general strike is planned which will mainly target transportation services. So when we look at this from a distance, what we see is that we get some kind of zigzag pattern where we start with known information, we add new information, and then we take that new information and put it at the beginning of our next sentence, and then add more information. So we're really just stacking information on one thing onto another. This is how many stories develop, but also how many report writing goes. Taking it one step at a time and taking the reader through a logical progression in something that looks like a zigzag pattern. These sentences and the combination of these sentences in paragraphs are easy to understand, mainly because you follow a single path through a text where everything builds on the previous item. There are no leaps that you need to make, no mental leaps that you need to take. Of course, this is not the only option. Another option is something that we looked at before. This is a text featuring the same subject. So not really having a zigzag structure, you always start with the same element and you add information onto that general concept by always starting with the same element. Barack Obama has dedicated his life to public service. Obama now continues his fight for working families. Senator Obama serves on the Health, Education, Labor and Pensions Committee. This, of course, text was taken before he was elected president. So what we have here is not taking a new subject and the subject is the thing that was mentioned last in the previous sentence. No, here you just stack information always on the same subject. Now, if you combine this type with this type, you will get texts that have good cohesion, that will be clear for the audience to understand and to read. And that's why we advise you to adopt these in the writing of your papers. Good luck.